I'm standing in my driveway at 6 in the morning, coffee mug in one hand, brass key in the other. The same brass key my dad gave me 35 years ago when he helped me install this mailbox. Steel gray built like a tank, with his initials scratched into the side where he dropped his wrench. The frost is still thick on the metal when I hear the car doors slam. "Mr. Miller," the voice cuts through the morning silence like a buzzsaw. "We need to talk." I turn around, and there's Brenda Wilson marching across my lawn like she owns it. Chairman of our Homeowners Association. 50 pounds of pure authority packed into a pink blazer. Behind her, some kid with a clipboard and a camera around his neck. "Morning, Brenda." I take a sip of coffee. "Little early for a social call, don't you think?" She stops 3 feet from my mailbox, breathing hard. Her face is flushed, and not from the cold walk over. "This eyesore," she points at my mailbox like it personally insulted her mother, "violates our new aesthetic standards." "What standards?" The kid steps forward. "I'm Tim, Mrs. Wilson's assistant. We conducted a neighborhood survey last month. Metal mailboxes are now classified as commercial-grade equipment. All residential boxes must be composite materials only." I stare at them both. "Commercial grade? It's a mailbox." "A mailbox that looks like it belongs at a construction site," Brenda snaps. She nods to Tim, who starts taking pictures. The camera flash pops in my face. "You have 48 hours to replace it with something appropriate. The fine is $500 per day after that." My grip tightens on the brass key. $500? Plus installation fees if we have to remove it ourselves. She's smiling now, the kind of smile a shark makes right before it bites. "I'm sure you understand, Jake. We all have to do our part to maintain property values. I've lived on Maple Street for 22 years, raised my kids here, buried my wife from the church 2 blocks over. This mailbox has been standing guard through every season, every storm, every delivery since I moved in." "Show me the survey," I say. Tim fumbles with his clipboard. "Well, it was more of an informal assessment. Show me the paperwork that says I can't keep my father's mailbox." Brenda's smile gets sharper. "The paperwork will be filed with the county by end of business today. Your compliance deadline remains unchanged." She turns to leave, then stops. "Oh, and Jake? Tim's mother runs the property assessment office. I'd hate for this to affect your home valuation." The threat hangs in the cold air like diesel exhaust. After they leave, I stand there holding that brass key, listening to the wind rattle through the bare oak branches. 48 hours, 500 a day. These people think they can just walk onto my property and demand I tear down something my father built with his own hands. You ever have someone look you dead in the eye and tell you that your memories don't matter? That's what this feels like. I finish my coffee and head inside to call Frank. Frank Morrison has been delivering mail on Maple Street since before I moved in. 68 years old, knows every mailbox, every family, every dog that'll bite, and everyone that won't. If anyone knows the rules about mailboxes, it's Frank. "Jake!" His voice crackles through the phone. "Heard about your little visit this morning. Word travels fast around here." "That fast?" Brenda called 3 other neighbors before 7 a.m. Told them all about your non-compliant commercial equipment. He chuckles, but there's no humor in it. "Listen, meet me at Murphy's Diner at lunch. There's some things you need to know about your mailbox. Things Brenda Wilson doesn't want you to find out." The phone goes quiet except for the sound of Frank breathing. "What kind of things, Frank?" "The kind that might surprise you. That mailbox of yours? It's been certified by the Postal Service since 1987. I ought to know. I'm the one who signed off on it." My pulse quickens. "You mean it's legal?" "More than legal, son. See you at Murphy's. And Jake, bring that brass key with you." The line goes dead, and I'm standing in my kitchen with a dial tone and the first hint of hope I've felt all morning. Brenda Wilson thinks she can steamroll right over me, but she just made her first mistake. She picked a fight with the wrong mailbox. Murphy's Diner sits on the corner of Main and 3rd, the kind of place where the coffee's been brewing since dawn, and the pie case hasn't changed since 1982. Frank's already in our usual booth when I walk in, a manila folder spread out in front of him, like evidence at a crime scene. "Sit down, Jake." He doesn't look up from the papers. "You're going to want to see this." I slide into the booth, and Frank pushes a faded document across the table. Official letterhead, signatures, stamps, the works. Postal Service Certification Form 1583, he says, filed September 15th, 1987. Your mailbox, approved for residential delivery service. The paper feels substantial in my hands. Real. Not like the threats Brenda was throwing around this morning. This means what exactly? It means your mailbox meets federal standards. It has for 35 years. Frank leans back, his weathered face creasing into a grin. Metal construction, proper height, accessible door mechanism, everything by the book. I stare at the certification. My father's signature is at the bottom, right next to Frank's official stamp. But Brenda said a lot of things, most of them horse manure. Frank pulls out another sheet. Here's what she didn't tell you. Federal law trumps local homeowner association rules when it comes to mail delivery. Always has, always will. The waitress Carol stops by our table. She's been working here longer than I've lived in town, knows everyone's order by heart. The usual boys? Coffee and apple pie, I say, though my stomach's too twisted to think about eating. Frank orders the same, then waits until Carol's out of the earshot. There's more, Jake. I did some digging after you called. Turns out 3 other families on your street got the same ultimatum about their mailboxes in the past 6 months. What happened to them? They caved, bought new composite boxes from Wilson's Home Solutions for $800 each. The name hits me like a slap. Wilson's Home Solutions? Brenda's little side business. Funny how that works, isn't it? She creates a problem, then sells you the solution. Frank's eyes narrow. That boy Tim, he's not just her assistant. He's her son, business partner. My coffee arrives, and I wrap my hands around the mug to stop them from shaking. Not from fear, from anger. She's running a scam. A smart scam, too. Make it official sounding, throw around some fines, get people scared. Most folks don't know their rights. They just pay up and move on. But you've got the documentation. I've got more than that. Frank reaches into the folder again, pulls out a stack of receipts. Wilson's Home Solutions, 3 sales in the past 6 months, all to families who got violation notices, all for exactly $800. I study the receipts. The dates match up with what Frank told me. Mrs. Chen from 2 blocks over, the Johnsons on Oak Street, even old Mr. Patterson, who's lived here since before I was born. They threatened him too. Threatened his grandson's college fund, said the fines would keep accumulating until his house went into foreclosure. Frank shakes his head. 87 years old, and they scared him into buying a mailbox he didn't need. The pie arrives, but I push it aside. My appetite's gone completely now. What about the postal inspector? Can't they do something? Martinez? He came out to look at Patterson's old box last month, declared it technically obsolete, and recommended replacement. Frank's voice drops to a whisper. Martinez's wife works for Brenda's insurance company, has for 2 years. The pieces are clicking together like bullets loading into a chamber. Brenda creates fake violations. Her son documents them. Her pet inspector rubber stamps the removals. And they profit $800 per victim. Clean, simple, and completely illegal. How many people know about this? Just you, me, and whoever's paying attention. Frank closes the folder. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I think about this morning, Brenda's shark smile, Tim's camera flashing in my face, the casual threat about my property assessment. They came onto my land, insulted my father's memory, and tried to shake me down like some street corner thug. I'm going to fight back. Good. Frank slides the folder across to me. Take this. Make copies. And Jake, be careful. Brenda Wilson didn't get to be association chairman by playing nice. As if summoned by his words, the diner door chimes, and Brenda walks in with Tim right behind her. She spots us immediately, her eyes narrowing when she sees the folder in my hands. She walks over, her heels clicking on the checkered floor like a countdown timer. Jake Miller. Her voice could freeze gasoline. I hope you're using your lunch break to shop for a new mailbox. The clock's ticking. I look up at her, then at Tim, who's already got his camera ready. Actually, Brenda, I was just learning about federal postal regulations. Fascinating stuff. Her smile falters for just a second, just long enough for me to know I hit a nerve. Federal regulations don't supersede community standards, Jake. You'd do well to remember that. We'll see about that. I stand up, folder in hand. Have a nice lunch. As I walk toward the door, I hear Tim whisper something to his mother. She hisses back, too quiet for me to make out the words, but the tone is clear enough. I just declared war on the Homeowners Association, and they have no idea what they're up against. The emergency meeting notice shows up in my mailbox that same afternoon. Hand-delivered, of course, since Brenda knows exactly where to find me. Community Standards Violation hearing, scheduled for 7 p.m. tonight at the community center. Mandatory attendance for non-compliant residents. Non-compliant, like I'm some kind of criminal. I spend the rest of the afternoon making copies of Frank's documents at the library. The young clerk behind the desk, Jessica, recognizes me from church. "Everything okay, Mr. Miller? You look stressed." "Just preparing for a fight." She glances at the postal certification forms. "This about your mailbox? My mom got one of those violation notices last year. Cost her $800 for a new one." $800 exactly? "Yeah, Wilson's Home Solutions. Said it was the only approved vendor." Jessica leans closer. "Between you and me, that new mailbox broke after 3 months. Door won't stay shut when it rains." Another victim. Another $800 in Brenda's pocket. "Did your mom keep the old paperwork?" "Probably. Mom keeps everything." Jessica looks around, then whispers, "You fighting this thing?" "Trying to." "Good. Someone needs to." By the time I get to the community center, the parking lot's packed. More cars than I've seen here since the Christmas pageant. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it involves people's property and money. The meeting room buzzes with nervous energy. 30, maybe 40 neighbors packed into folding chairs. I recognize most of them, but the atmosphere feels different tonight. Tense, divided. Brenda stands at the front podium, like a prosecutor about to deliver closing arguments. Tim sits beside her with a laptop and projector, ready to present their case. Behind them, a large screen displays a slideshow. Maintaining property values through community standards. "Thank you all for coming," Brenda begins, her voice carrying that false warmth politicians use. "Tonight we're addressing a serious threat to our neighborhood's aesthetic integrity." The projector clicks. Up comes a photo of my mailbox, blown up to poster size. It looks different on the big screen, older, more weathered. They've angled the shot to emphasize every dent, every scratch where Dad's wrench slipped 35 years ago. "Commercial-grade metal equipment," Brenda continues, "has no place in a residential community. It sends the wrong message about our commitment to excellence." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Mrs. Henderson from across the street nods approvingly. The Pattersons look uncomfortable, probably remembering their own $800 shakedown. Mr. Miller has had ample opportunity to comply with our updated guidelines. Instead, he's chosen to ignore community standards and put everyone's property values at risk. More photos click by, my mailbox from different angles, compared side by side with the sleek composite boxes that dot the neighborhood. The before and after shots make it look like I'm single-handedly destroying civilization. "The financial impact is clear," Tim chimes in, reading from his laptop. "Properties adjacent to non-compliant structures show decreased valuation of up to 12%. 12%. He's pulling numbers out of thin air, but he says it with such confidence that people start shifting in their seats. I can see the calculations running through their heads. 12% of a $300,000 house is $36,000. "Now," Brenda says, "we'll hear from Mr. Miller himself. Jake, would you like to explain your refusal to comply?" All eyes turn to me, 40 neighbors waiting to hear why I'm supposedly costing them money. The weight of their stares presses down like a lead blanket. I stand up, Frank's folder in my hand. "Actually, Brenda, I'd like to share some information about federal postal regulations." "This isn't about federal regulations. This is about community responsibility." "It's about both." I walk to the front of the room, folder open. My mailbox was certified by the United States Postal Service in 1987. It meets all federal standards for residential mail delivery. I hold up the certification form. A few people lean forward, trying to read it. Federal law supersedes local association rules when it comes to mail delivery, I continue. That's not my opinion. That's established precedent. Brenda's smile doesn't waver, but I catch Tim whispering urgently in her ear. "Mr. Miller," she says smoothly, I understand you've been speaking with our postal carrier. Frank Morrison is a fine man, but he's not a legal authority on property standards. No, but Postal Inspector Martinez is. I called his office this afternoon. I pause, letting that sink in. Turns out he's very interested in any attempts to override federal mail delivery regulations. That's a lie, but it sounds good. And the flicker of worry that crosses Brenda's face tells me I'm on to something. Furthermore, I continue, pulling out the receipts Frank gave me, I find it interesting that Wilson's Home Solutions has sold exactly 3 mailboxes this year, all to residents who received violation notices, all for exactly $800. The murmur in the room changes tone, less supportive of Brenda, more suspicious. Mrs. Chen raises her hand. I bought one of those mailboxes. It fell apart after 4 months. The door won't stay closed, adds Mr. Patterson. Rain gets in and ruins my mail. Brenda raises her voice. The quality of replacement fixtures isn't the issue here. The issue is community compliance. The issue, I say, my voice cutting through the room like a knife, is conflict of interest. You create violations, then profit from the solutions. The room goes dead quiet. Even the heating system seems to hold its breath. Brenda's composure finally cracks. Her face flushes red, and when she speaks, her voice shakes with barely controlled rage. Mr. Miller, you're out of order. This meeting is to address your non-compliance, not to spread conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories? I hold up the receipts again. These are your sales records, your business, your profit. Tim jumps to his feet. That's private business information. You have no right to... I have every right to defend myself against extortion. The word hangs in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Extortion. I've said it out loud, in front of 40 witnesses. There's no taking it back now. Brenda grabs the microphone from the podium. This meeting is adjourned. Mr. Miller, you have 24 hours to comply with the original violation notice, or we proceed with enforcement action. She storms out, Tim scrambling to pack up the projector behind her. But half the room doesn't leave. They stay in their seats whispering, looking at me with expressions I can't quite read. Mrs. Chen approaches as I pack up Frank's folder. That federal regulation thing, she says quietly. Does it apply to mailboxes that were already replaced? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. She nods. Let me know what you discover. I kept all my paperwork. As I walk to my truck, I realize something's changed. An hour ago, I was fighting for my mailbox. Now, I'm fighting for something bigger. But Brenda Wilson just made her second mistake. She threatened me in front of witnesses. And now she's got less than 24 hours to figure out her next move. I wake up to the sound of hammering at 5:30 in the morning. Not the gentle tap-tap of someone hanging a picture, but the aggressive bang-bang-bang of someone who wants the whole neighborhood to hear them work. I stumble to my front window and look out. There's Tim Wilson in my front yard with a sledgehammer, taking practice swings at the ground next to my mailbox. The metal post rings like a bell with each near miss. Hey, I yell through the glass. What the hell are you doing? He stops mid-swing and grins at me. Morning, Mr. Miller. Just measuring for the removal equipment. Hope I didn't wake you. I throw on clothes and storm outside. Tim's got a clipboard now, pretending to take measurements while the sledgehammer leans against my mailbox like a threat. You're on my property. Actually, mailboxes fall under easement law. This is county right-of-way. He taps his pen against the clipboard. Your compliance deadline expired at midnight. We're proceeding with enforcement. Enforcement doesn't start until business hours. Sure it does. County Ordinance 247B allows immediate removal of code violations that pose public safety hazards. Tim pulls out his phone and starts recording. Sir, are you interfering with official county business? The kid's got an answer for everything. Probably rehearsed this whole routine with mommy over breakfast. But something about his cocky attitude tells me he's overplaying his hand. Show me the county ordinance. I don't have to show you anything, but feel free to call the sheriff's office if you have questions. He hefts the sledgehammer again. Should take about 10 minutes to remove the post, 20 to clean up the debris. I hear car doors slamming. 2 patrol cars pull up to the curb, and 4 deputies get out. Real deputies, not the weekend volunteers. They walk over with the casual confidence of men who've done this before. Morning, gentlemen, Tim calls out. We're ready to proceed. The lead deputy, a guy about my age with sergeant stripes, nods to Tim, then looks at me. Sir, I need you to step back onto your porch while county business is conducted. County business. They're all using the same phrase, like they practiced it. This is my property. The easement is county jurisdiction, sir. Please step back. I want to argue, want to fight, want to grab that sledgehammer out of Tim's hands and show him what a real man can do with it. But 4 deputies change the math considerably. I retreat to my porch and watch them work. Tim makes a show of photographing the mailbox from every angle while one deputy videos the whole process for documentation purposes. Another deputy measures the distance from the road, nodding seriously as Tim explains the safety violations and aesthetic non-compliance. The performance is flawless, official, legal, and completely fake. The sergeant walks over to my porch. Sir, do you have any personal items in the mailbox that need to be retrieved? Just yesterday's mail. He signals to Tim, who opens the mailbox and pulls out 3 envelopes. Bills and advertisements, the normal junk. But he handles them like evidence, placing each one in a manila envelope labeled Personal Property, J. Miller. The county will hold these for 30 days, the sergeant says. You can claim them at the courthouse. My own mail, held hostage by bureaucrats. Tim positions the sledgehammer against the metal post. Everyone ready? This is it. 35 years of history about to be erased by a kid with a clipboard and his mother's corruption scheme. Dad's initials scratched into the side, barely visible in the morning light. The brass key warm in my pocket, useless now. Wait, the voice comes from behind me. I turn to see Frank Morrison walking across my yard, official Postal Service jacket on, badge gleaming in the sunrise. Frank, I breathe. What are you doing here? My job. He walks straight up to Tim and the deputies. Gentlemen, I need to see the removal authorization for this certified postal delivery point. Tim fumbles with his clipboard. We have county authority. County authority doesn't override federal postal service jurisdiction. Frank's voice carries the weight of 30-plus years of government service. This mailbox is certified for federal mail delivery. Any removal requires postal service approval. The sergeant frowns. Sir, are you claiming federal jurisdiction over a county code violation? I'm not claiming anything. I'm stating federal law. Frank pulls out a laminated card from his jacket. Title 18, United States Code, Section 1705. Destruction of mail delivery equipment is a federal offense. The deputies exchange glances. Tim's confidence evaporates like steam from hot coffee. Frank, I call out, what's going on? I made some calls last night, Jake. Turns out Postal Inspector Martinez never actually inspected your mailbox, never declared it obsolete, never recommended replacement. Frank's eyes narrow. Seems someone's been forging federal documents? Tim goes pale. That's not... We never said... You said Martinez inspected Patterson's mailbox and declared it obsolete. I checked the records. Martinez was in Denver that week for a conference. Never set foot on Oak Street. The sergeant steps between Frank and Tim. Are you saying these county documents are fraudulent? I'm saying someone's been lying about federal inspections to frighten citizens into compliance with fake regulations. Frank looks directly at me. Jake, you might want to call that lawyer friend of yours. I don't have a lawyer friend, but I catch Frank's meaning. This just became bigger than mailboxes and homeowner associations. This became federal mail fraud. Tim backs toward his car, sledgehammer forgotten. This is all a misunderstanding. We were just following association guidelines. Association guidelines don't authorize forgery of federal inspector reports, Frank says calmly, or fraudulent representation of Postal Service decisions. One of the deputies keys his radio. Dispatch, we're going to need a detective down here. Possible document fraud investigation. Tim breaks into a run, sprinting for his car like the devil's chasing him. He peels out of my driveway, leaving rubber marks on the asphalt and the sledgehammer lying in my grass. The sergeant looks at Frank, then at me, then at the mailbox still standing intact beside my driveway. Sir, he says to me, I think you're going to want to file a complaint. As the deputies pack up their equipment and Frank fills out paperwork, I stand there holding Dad's brass key and watching the sun rise over Maple Street. Tim Wilson just made the biggest mistake of his life. He ran, and now everyone knows he's guilty of something. By noon, my phone won't stop ringing. Word spreads faster than wildfire in a small town, especially when it involves the police, federal mail fraud, and the Homeowners Association president's son running away from a crime scene. The first call comes from Jessica at the library. "Mr. Miller, my mom wants to know if she can get her $800 back." The second call is Mrs. Chen. "Jake, I found all my paperwork, the violation notice, the Wilson's Home Solutions receipt, everything. What do I do with it?" The third call is from someone I don't recognize. "Is this the guy fighting the mailbox scam? I live over in Pinewood Estates. Same thing happened to us last year." By the fifth call, I realize this is bigger than just Maple Street, bigger than just our homeowners association. Brenda and Tim have been running this scam across multiple neighborhoods, multiple associations. How many people paid $800 for mailboxes they didn't need to replace? Frank shows up at my door around 1 o'clock with a box of documents and a grim expression. "Jake, we need to talk, and you're going to want to sit down for this." We spread the paperwork across my kitchen table. Federal postal regulations, county ordinances, homeowner association bylaws, and a stack of receipts from Wilson's Home Solutions that's 3 inches thick. "I spent the morning at the courthouse," Frank says, "pulled records for every neighborhood Brenda Wilson serves as consultant or board member. Take a look at this." He slides a spreadsheet across the table. Names, addresses, violation dates, and payment amounts. The pattern is clear and damning. Every 6 months, like clockwork, Wilson's Home Solutions gets a burst of exactly $800 sales, always preceded by violation notices, always from the same neighborhoods where Brenda holds influence. 63 mailboxes, Frank says quietly, over the past 3 years. That's $50,000. 50,000. I stare at the numbers. Jesus, Frank, that's not a scam. That's a business. Gets worse. Look at the dates. He points to a cluster of entries from last spring. April 15th through May 20th. 7 violations, 7 sales, all within 5 weeks, right around property tax assessment time. The implications hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut. She timed it for maximum fear. Property values, tax assessments, people scared about their biggest investment. She played on every homeowner's worst nightmare. Frank leans back in his chair. And she almost got away with it. My phone rings again. This time it's Detective Sarah Coleman from the County Fraud Division. "Mr. Miller, I understand you filed a complaint this morning. I'd like to set up an interview." "Interview?" "We're opening a formal investigation into fraudulent business practices. Your case might be the tip of a very large iceberg." After I hang up, Frank looks at me with something approaching admiration. "You know what you've done, Jake? You've opened Pandora's box. Every victim, every fraudulent violation, every forged document, it's all going to come out now." But even as he says it, I feel a chill running down my spine. "Frank, what happens to people who cross Brenda Wilson?" "What do you mean?" "Think about it. 3 years, $50,000, dozens of victims. Nobody fought back until now. Why? What happened to the people who tried?" Frank's expression darkens. "I don't know, but maybe we should find out." The answer comes sooner than expected. At 3 o'clock, there's a knock on my door. Not the aggressive pounding of Tim with his sledgehammer, but a hesitant, nervous tap. I open it to find Mr. Patterson standing on my porch. 87 years old, wearing a cardigan despite the warm afternoon, clutching a manila envelope against his chest like armor. "Jake," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can I come in? I need to tell you something important." We sit in my living room, Patterson in Dad's old recliner, the manila envelope unopened in his lap. He stares out the window for a long moment before he speaks. "I fought them too," he says finally. 2 years ago, when they came from my mailbox. The same one my son installed when he got back from Vietnam. I lean forward. "What happened?" "I had the documentation, just like you. Federal approval, Postal Service certification, the whole thing. I was ready to fight." He opens the envelope and pulls out a photograph. "Then they sent me this." The photo shows Patterson's grandson, Tommy, walking out of his college dormitory. A normal college kid doing normal college things. Except someone had drawn a red X across his face with a marker. "They knew his class schedule," Patterson continues. "Knew where he lived, where he worked, where he parked his car. The message was clear." My blood turns to ice water. They threatened your grandson. Never directly, never in writing. But the photo came with a note saying, accidents happen to families who don't cooperate with community standards. Patterson folds the photo carefully, puts it back in the envelope. I paid the $800 the next day. Did you keep the note? Burned it. Too scared to keep evidence of what they might do. He looks at me with eyes full of regret. I'm sorry, Jake. I should have been braver, should have fought harder. You protected your family. There's no shame in that. Maybe not, but there's no honor in it either. He stands up slowly, joints creaking. That's why I'm here. I can't give you the note, but I can give you testimony. I can tell the police exactly what they did to me. After Patterson leaves, I sit in my kitchen staring at Frank's spreadsheet of victims. 63 people. How many of them got threatening photos? How many were scared into silence by the Wilson family's intimidation tactics? The phone rings again. This time it's a number I don't recognize. Is this Jake Miller? The voice is female, scared, whispering. Yes. My name is Linda Foster. I live in Pinewood Estates. I heard what you did this morning, standing up to them. There's a pause, the sound of her breathing. Mr. Miller, they have pictures of my daughter. The room seems to tilt sideways. What kind of pictures? She's 16, walks to school every morning. Someone's been following her, taking photos. They sent them to me with a note saying good mothers protect their children by following community standards. When was this? Last month, right before I paid Wilson's Home Solutions $800 for a mailbox I didn't need. I close my eyes, trying to process the scope of what we're dealing with. This isn't just fraud. It's organized intimidation, stalking, maybe worse. Mrs. Foster, have you called the police? I'm scared. What if they hurt her? What if fighting back makes it worse? I think about Patterson's grandson, about Linda Foster's daughter, about how many other families are living in fear because of Brenda Wilson's greed. Mrs. Foster, I say, fighting back is the only way to make it stop. After I hang up, I realize something has fundamentally changed. This morning I was fighting for my mailbox. This afternoon I'm fighting for every family in town who's been terrorized by criminals disguised as community leaders. But now I know what I'm really up against, and it's a lot more dangerous than I thought. Detective Coleman arrives at my house Thursday morning with 2 other investigators and enough paperwork to choke a horse. She's younger than I expected, maybe 40, with the kind of sharp eyes that miss nothing and remember everything. Mr. Miller, we've been busy since yesterday. Your complaint opened up 3 other active investigations we didn't know were connected. She spreads files across my kitchen table. Wilson's Home Solutions, fraudulent postal inspector reports, and now we're looking at witness intimidation. How many victims are we talking about? So far, 87 confirmed cases across 4 counties. But we think there's more. She pulls out a thick folder. The intimidation angle is new. Mr. Patterson's testimony yesterday gave us grounds for federal involvement. Federal involvement. The words hit harder than I expected. What does that mean? It means mail fraud combined with interstate intimidation becomes a federal case. FBI's taking the lead. She looks at me seriously. It also means you're in more danger than you realize. Before I can ask what she means, my phone buzzes. Text message from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. It shows me sleeping in my bed last night, taken through my bedroom window. The phone slips from my hands and clatters on the kitchen floor. Detective Coleman picks it up, looks at the screen, and immediately keys her radio. Control, I need a patrol unit at 247 Maple Street immediately, and get me a crime scene photographer. The next 2 hours blur together like a nightmare. Police cars, photographers, technicians dusting my windows for fingerprints. They find footprints in the flower bed outside my bedroom, cigarette butts, even a small tripod mark in the dirt. Professional setup, one technician tells Coleman. Someone spent serious time watching this house. While they process the scene, Coleman sits me down in my living room. Jake, I need you to understand what's happening here. The Wilsons aren't just running a mailbox scam. They're operating a sophisticated intimidation network. Photos of children, elderly relatives, people's homes. They've been at this for years. How many others got photos like this? We're up to 12 confirmed cases just since yesterday. But here's the thing that worries me. She leans forward. You're the first person who fought back publicly. The first one who got police involved. That makes you their biggest threat. What are you saying? I'm saying Brenda Wilson has built a $50,000 a year business on fear and intimidation. You're about to destroy that. People like her don't just walk away quietly. As if summoned by her words, there's a knock at my front door. Coleman signals for me to stay seated while she answers it. It's Brenda Wilson herself, flanked by two men in expensive suits, lawyers from the look of them. She's traded her pink blazer for funeral black, and her expression could freeze hell. Detective Coleman, she says smoothly, I understand there's been some confusion about community standards enforcement. Perhaps we can resolve this misunderstanding. Mrs. Wilson, you're under investigation for fraud and intimidation. I'd suggest you speak through your attorney. Oh, I think there's been a terrible mistake. Brenda steps into my living room like she owns it, her lawyers trailing behind. You see, Mr. Miller has been spreading defamatory accusations about my legitimate business operations. She looks directly at me, and her smile is pure poison. Jake, I hope you understand the serious legal consequences of making false statements about community leaders. Defamation lawsuits can be quite expensive. Sometimes people lose their homes. One of the lawyers opens his briefcase and pulls out a thick document. Cease and desist order, he announces. Mr. Miller is hereby notified to stop making false and damaging statements about Wilson's Home Solutions and the Homeowners Association. Coleman takes the document, glances at it, then hands it back. This is a civil matter. Doesn't affect our criminal investigation. Criminal investigation? Brenda laughs, but there's no humor in it. Detective, I think you'll find that all our business practices are completely legal. Community standards enforcement is well within Homeowners Association authority. What about the forged postal inspector reports? I have no knowledge of any forged documents. What about the intimidation photos? I have no idea what you're talking about. Brenda's performance is flawless, calm, controlled, completely innocent. If I didn't know better, I'd almost believe her myself. Mrs. Wilson, Coleman says quietly, we have testimony from multiple witnesses about threatening photographs and intimidation tactics. Hearsay, accusations from disgruntled residents who refuse to maintain community standards. Brenda's voice never wavers. Detective, I've been serving this community for 15 years. My reputation speaks for itself. So does your bank account, I say, standing up. $50,000 from scared homeowners who replace mailboxes they didn't need to replace. Brenda turns to face me fully, and for just a second, the mask slips. I see the real woman underneath, cold, calculating, completely ruthless. Jake, she says softly, you should be very careful about the accusations you make. Very careful about the enemies you choose to make. Some battles aren't worth the price you'll pay to fight them. The threat hangs in the air between us like smoke from a gun barrel. Coleman steps between us. Mrs. Wilson, that sounds like intimidation of a witness. That sounds like friendly advice from a concerned neighbor. The mask is back in place. Detective, when you've finished wasting taxpayer resources on this nonsense, you'll find that Wilson's Home Solutions operates entirely within legal parameters. She turns to leave, then stops at my front door. Oh, Jake, you might want to check on your mailbox. I'd hate for anything to happen to that precious family heirloom. After they leave, Coleman and I stand in my living room listening to the silence. Finally, she speaks. Jake, I need to ask you something important. Are you willing to see this through? Because after what just happened, there's no backing down. She's going to come at you with everything she has. I think about Mr. Patterson's grandson, about Linda Foster's daughter, about 87 families who paid money they didn't owe because they were too scared to fight back. I think about my father's mailbox standing guard in my front yard and the brass key warm in my pocket. Detective, I say, let her come. But as I say it, I realize I might have just made the biggest mistake of my life. Friday morning brings news that changes everything. Detective Coleman calls at 7 a.m., and I can hear the excitement in her voice even through the phone static. Jake, we got her. Tim Wilson made a deal with the FBI, full confession in exchange for immunity. I nearly dropped the coffee mug. He flipped on his mother? Completely. Bank records, forged documents, intimidation photos, the whole operation. Turns out he kept copies of everything as insurance. Coleman's voice carries the satisfaction of a case finally breaking open. We're executing search warrants in 20 minutes. Thought you'd want to know? Through my front window, I watch 3 black SUVs roll down Maple Street like a federal parade. They stop in front of Brenda's house, and agents pour out carrying boxes of evidence bags and search equipment. By 8 o'clock, half the neighborhood is standing on their lawns watching federal agents carry computers, file cabinets, and boxes of documents out of Brenda Wilson's perfect suburban home. Tim sits in the back of one SUV, head in his hands, while his mother screams at lawyers on her front porch. "This is harassment," Brenda's voice carries across the street. "I'll sue every one of you fascist thugs." But even from 100 yards away, I can see the fear in her eyes. The mask is completely gone now. She's just a cornered criminal watching her empire collapse. Frank shows up at my door with a thermos of coffee and a satisfied grin. "Figured you'd want company for the show." We stand on my porch, watching justice finally arrive on Maple Street. Neighbors emerge from their houses, some supportive, others still suspicious. Mrs. Chen waves from her front yard. Mr. Patterson gives me a thumbs up from his porch. But it's the phone calls that really tell the story. By noon, I've heard from 43 families across 4 counties. People who paid Wilson's Home Solutions. People who received threatening photos. People who were too scared to fight back until now. Mr. Miller, the voice belongs to Linda Foster, the mother from Pinewood Estates. "I wanted to thank you. My daughter can walk to school safely now." "We all did this together, Mrs. Foster." "No, sir. You did it first. You stood up when the rest of us were too scared." As the afternoon wears on, the scope of the Wilson operation becomes clear. Federal investigators find records of similar scams in 12 states. Fake inspections, fraudulent violations, intimidation photos of children and elderly relatives. The $50,000 we found was just the local operation. Detective Coleman stops by around 5 p.m. with an update. Final count, 237 victims, 6 states, federal charges including mail fraud, racketeering, and witness intimidation. Brenda Wilson's looking at 15 to 20 years. What about the people who paid for unnecessary mailboxes? Full restitution, plus damages for emotional distress. Coleman closes her notebook. "Jake, you should know something. Tim's confession included details about plans they had for you if you kept fighting." "What kind of plans?" "Let's just say that photo through your bedroom window was only the beginning. You're lucky this ended when it did." After Coleman leaves, I walk out to my mailbox. Dad's old steel box, still standing guard after 35 years. The late afternoon sun catches the scratches where his wrench slipped, and I can almost hear his voice telling me about the importance of standing up for what's right. I pull out the brass key he gave me and check the mail. Bills, advertisements, the usual stuff. But there's also something else. A handwritten envelope with no return address. Inside, a simple note. "Thank you for your courage. A grateful neighbor." It's not signed, but it doesn't need to be. Over the past week, I've learned that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you are scared. My phone rings one last time. It's Frank. "Jake, turn on Channel 7. You're going to want to see this." The evening news leads with Brenda Wilson's perp walk. Federal marshals escorting her to a waiting car, while reporters shout questions she refuses to answer. The anchor calls it the largest homeowner association fraud scheme in state history. But what gets me is the interview they show with Mr. Patterson, 87 years old, standing straight and proud in front of his house. "That young man, Jake Miller," he tells the camera, "he reminded all of us what it means to stand up for your neighbors. Sometimes it just takes one person willing to say no to bullies." As the sun sets over Maple Street, I sit on my porch with a beer and think about the week that changed everything. 5 days ago, I was just a guy trying to save his father's mailbox. Tonight, I'm part of something bigger. The brass key sits warm in my pocket, and I realize Dad would be proud. Not just of keeping his mailbox safe, but of standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. Sometimes the smallest fights turn out to be the most important ones. And sometimes, when you're willing to risk everything for what's right, you discover you're not fighting alone after all. The mailbox stands in my yard, scratched and weathered but undefeated, just like the community that rallied to protect it. Just like all of us who learned that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they refuse to be intimidated by bullies disguised as authority. That's a lesson worth more than all the composite mailboxes in the world.